answer the text or get the presenters to answer the text during the course of our presentation. We're going to get started in about a minute, and thank you for taking the time to join us for the Site Midwest educational webinar.
Oh, so I need to hold on. I have to leave mine. Do what text? I know you're.
All right. Hi, everybody. This is Jim Adams, and we're with the Site Midwest Board, and we have got some excellent presenters today, so I'm very excited about this presentation. If you've listened to us before, we do a webinar trilogy, and the trilogy this week is going to So today's webinar, we're going to explore the changes that have occurred in travel incentive industry, as what advancements are coming down the pike and what other changes we think we have to look forward to. I'm Jim Adams. I'm the moderator. I just retired from the site board. I'm going to stay involved in the education part of the webinars, being replaced by Lindsay Adams, who's president of my company, Performance Strategies. And I hope you're all planning on coming to road shows, because we're going to continue to have great education, both through our webinars and on the road. Today, we're so lucky because we actually have a distinguished panel. A lot of times I have to say it, I don't necessarily believe it, but today I do. We've got Clare Darland, who's the Director of Sourcing for Maritz Travel Company, and she's also happens to be President of Site Midwest and doing a great job. She's a Maritz travel team member since 1989. Clare manages a seasoned team of buyers who source, negotiate, and contract worldwide with suppliers on behalf of their clients. She majored in hospitality management and food science and started her career as a travel director. She quickly realized that a future in the corporate and incentive travel was for her. And with 30 years of industry experience, she's respected among her peers, team, and industry colleagues as a skilled negotiator, trusted advisor, and a client advocate. As a past chair and current member of the Maritz Global Events Human Trafficking Committee, she strives to raise awareness about that important issue. She began her work on site in 2011. As president of Site Midwest, she hopes to contribute her passion for travel to the continued growth of success and to the future leaders in the travel industry. She happens to be homegrown, St. Louis, and her husband's also in the industry. They are both travel directors at the same time. So I imagine that their conversations that their kids have heard have lots of funny stories and lots of great solutions. And then next we have with us Emily Breeze. She's the Director of Registration Services for Unbridled Solutions. She's a graduate from University of Illinois. She's got a bachelor's in English and speech communications. Emily's been working in the travel industry for nearly 15 years. She began her career in the event management field with Gardner, and where she worked as a sponsorship coordinator and event planner. She's now been working for Unbridled Solutions for 4 years, and she's the Director of Registration Services. She's always loved traveling and exploring new places, making her a perfect fit for the industry. She currently resides in Kirkwood, Missouri, and has been on the site board of directors for almost a year. Clare, and Emily, I want to welcome you both and thank you for the time and the dedication that you've contributed to Site Midwest. Both people serve on the board, and if you're lucky enough to come to the Site Midwest Forum, you know how hard they work, because that was a tremendous success. Could everybody please mute except for Mary Claire and Emily? And I'm about to ask them some questions that I think you're all going to have great interest in. So part one of this two-part webinar is going to be a discussion regarding the industry changes and technological advancement that we've experienced throughout your travel, sales, and incentive careers. Emily actually has an IT background and has moved into travel from working with IT components. So I'm going to ask her to start with this question. How have you seen development in your career responsibilities tie into the advancements in technology in our industry, Emily?
Hi, everybody. Jim, thanks for having me. So I'm going to kind of just talk generally about the number of technology providers that we currently are seeing in the field. It seems that over the last few years, the numbers have dramatically increased. In 2018, we saw about 244 technology providers in the landscape, and then last year, 2019, the start of it, we doubled that number, or not doubled, but almost to about 450-ish. So we're seeing just an overwhelming number of different types of technology throughout the event industry itself. And it's just, the landscape keeps constantly changing, and you can see a variety from attendee tracking to presentation management to wearable technology to apps and that sort of thing. So it's just basically exploding. And then to your question that on the slide here, we're talking about the merger of event registration impacts and how it impacts business. Right. I would say that it's affected business because it makes us much more productive. We're seeing a lot more sort of efficiency types of apps or efficiency types of technology that's coming in, but it requires constant training. It requires upgrading our skills. It requires constant research into what all of these different options are, because you have clients, at least we do as a third party, coming to us and saying, well, we want to try this, or we want to do something different, and have you worked in it before? So we have to be the expert and have to understand everything from the basics of it to the kind of nuances or the workarounds. But to your question specifically, CVent is one of our registration software databases that we use most often. And so extremely large company. It's constantly buying up smaller companies because maybe they have some sort of nuance that their engineers haven't put together yet. So we're seeing that merger with event registration software, and it's a good thing at times, and it can be challenging at times as well. And I would say, from our perspective, like CVent is a very robust system, and I think it's great for most of our clients and for us because we can use it in such different capacities. We were exhibitors at CVent, not this year, but in a prior year, though, because we can feel like we can build CVent and work in CVent sometimes better than they can. So with the merger of all these pieces, I think sometimes their own people get a little bit lost into how it works and the nuance of it and the workarounds and how people can actually use all of that information. They can't train their teams fast enough. So that's where people like us kind of fall in and are able to catch up and maybe work with some of these smaller companies that can't dedicate the time to learning all of this stuff, these pieces.
Emily, how much of your job time in a week is spent trying to find those new technologies and trying to understand the new components when CVent makes changes and stuff? Is that a big part every week, or is that something you do on a monthly basis, or how would you describe that?
So we have, we call it our IO team, but interactive operations. There's two individuals behind that at Unbridled that focus on sort of researching and working in some of this new technology. So outside of Cvent, that's kind of where they come in, and they have like a running list of all these different companies that they research, and I'll add sort of to their database if I've looked at different registration providers or different on-site badge printing pieces. So we kind of collaborate on that, but I don't typically spend a lot of time researching because I can use them. So they can pick that up for me. But as for what goes on in Cvent, it depends on what is taking place for Cvent, basically, and kind of what clients we're working on. A lot of our clients like us to work in the system the exact same way that we handled it prior. And so for the most part, we do that. If there is a nuance or something that we've learned sort of along the way that we think would benefit them, we'll bring that to their attention. Cvent does, like I said, add components. I was thinking of one, Kapow, they added recently. I'm trying to remember exactly the specifics of Kapow, but when Cvent brought it to our attention, we had a call with our rep and talked about it, and realized that at that time, Cvent didn't even know what they were doing. Like they sent out this big email that they have technology with this company that they just purchased or merged with, and yet they have no idea what they're going to do with it or how it's going to be utilized or integrated with different events or platforms, or they really hadn't explored the area enough yet for us to even kind of consider it. So we often, too, have to have these discussions and then wait 6 months or wait a year to see how it's going to unfold or if it's going to be usable for us.
Thank you. Mary Claire, what's your thoughts on this question about how the merger of event registrations and that whole technology impacted your business?
Well, I think, we use Cvent in so many different ways. As Emily mentioned, it's a massive company with a lot of components. We use it for our sourcing, registration, a lot of different avenues. We're investing a lot of money here at Maritz in our IT department and in our experts, because not only do we have to be experts in this field for all of our clients, but we've got a lot of technology companies that we work with. So we're really called upon to stay ahead of the game. And I think we're doing a good job, but as Emily mentioned, it's constantly evolving, and one of our main goals, even on, I'm more on the pre-sale side, but in our registration and our event operations is to fully understand the capabilities of an organization or a company like Cvent for our individual clients. So while it might be a lot of things to a lot of people, it might not work well with one of our smaller clients. We might have to go to a different avenue. And people worry about, the competition with all this consolidation. There are still other companies out in the field. I know Cvent seems to be buying up a lot right now, but we're called on to work with other companies aside from Cvent, client directives. I think one of the benefits of Cvent for us, technology-wise, is we can work in the client's instance. We can work a lot of different avenues. There's a lot of different ways we can work with Cvent to benefit our clients. And then just beyond the Cvent avenue, we're looking into so many things for registration, like biometrics. So we have facial technology that we're into, which a lot of companies are going to for registration when they come to the event. We do facial recognition. There's cognitive services, which is a part of the biometrics where we can actually analyze if we've got a group of attendees and a speaker, we can analyze their facial expressions and their body movements to understand, was that speaker effective, you know? So there's all this technology out there that we're called upon to stay ahead of, and that's what we're investing a lot of money in here on behalf of our clients. So a lot of exciting things happening, but as Emily mentioned, I mean, it's happening so fast, it is hard for any size company to keep up with it. So that's the main goal for us.
And we all know Cvent's got a wonderful product, and there's many, many ways you can use that product. But there's also a group of people that are not our clients that might have become our clients, but they use Cvent for their sourcing and Cvent for their planning. How much do either one of you see those type of companies becoming more and more competition for us as they perfect their buying patterns down to specific markets?
Well, I can take that. It's Mary Claire. I can start with that anyway. You know, we do see Cvent as a competitor. They are a competitor of ours, in competitor of any third party, I would say. But you know, we've dealt with that for many years now, and we have clients that, like I said, they'll have their own instance. They want us to use their instance, and we can do that. So Cvent's worked with us to be able to modify how we work in their system on behalf of our clients. We have clients that say we don't need you because we can go online. It kind of reminds me, and I'm old enough to say this, in the old days when we'd have clients call us and say, you know, on page 14 of the paper, we see they're selling airline tickets, you know, for $199. Why can't you get us that? Well, we all know why. It's because, you know, we're buying a block of seats. We're buying, you know, there's a myriad of reasons why we can't get you all $199 Apple vacation tickets to Cancun, and for very good reason, right? So it kind of reminds me of that. You know, our job as experts in this industry isn't just to say, yes, we can press the button on Cvent better than you. Our job is to sell our service, right? To sell the whole package, and, you know, or parts of the package. We do that too. But, you know, it's, as Emily mentioned, you know, it's how we use that tool to best serve our client. And it's bigger than just pressing a button and getting a rate through Cvent or whatever, you know, the client may want to do. And I think a lot of our clients have tried that, and in some aspects and some parts of their business, it works well for them. They might have a little meeting that they do their own Cvent sourcing. That's great. But most of our clients have come to understand that our expertise in using these tools to their benefit makes the most sense to work with us. So I think it's about service. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because we've seen clients leave because they think that they can do Cvent on their own, and then they try it for a year, and then they actually come back to us because they realize that it's a lot more confusing, a lot more complex, and they might do a basic site on their own, but then they want additions to those basic pieces that they can't figure out how to maneuver, and so they end up calling us, and we consult for them for a time period as well. It's just such a robust tool that I think Cvent sort of oversells the product sometimes on its simplicity, when they need people, or anyone who's building a site really needs someone who's an expert and who's sitting in that Cvent database on a regular time frame, every single day.
Great, thank you both. Mary Claire, I have to laugh because you're old enough to remember the $199 tickets. I'm old enough to remember the $199 got you 6 nights, all inclusive with the airline ticket included from Indianapolis. Those are the conversations we have with clients. Why can't you do that? All right.
Exactly.
Well, are either one of you using any particular engagement technology apps like CoolLeaf or any of the other team building apps or things to enhance the overall basics of your programs, and how do you see them in their robustness?
Yeah, so this is Emily. We are not using CoolLeaf because that's, as a third party, we kind of focus more on the event app itself, and apps have significantly blown up for us in the last couple of years. I know in 2017 we were requested to build about 24 apps, And then this year we are anticipating about 67. So we're really focusing on that, and we start the engagement from the initial invitation of the website or of the registration process, and then we send out the app notification about a week or 2 weeks prior to the event, and then that app serves as sort of the networking component. It has the maps and the games and the sessions and little chats that attendees can have between each other, and that ends up being the biggest kind of networking component that we're seeing. We do also have, or we've been seeing on-site badge printing increase. It's a little bit slower to come through just because I think the price increases from printing out paper badges. But people love it whenever they purchase it, and we've only received positive feedback from that. And then as Mary Claire kind of mentioned this a little bit before as well, but we have providers that we've worked with in facial recognition. Wearable technology is very popular. We're seeing some requests for virtual reality. We know artificial intelligence, like all those AI pieces, chatbots, all of those things are really kind of peppering the market a lot more than they used to be.
Yeah.
I need somebody to mute, please. If you're just listening and not talking, please mute.
No, and it's just, I mean, like you especially, I mean, like, and when I would have to do that too, like I would be very like active with, like if I knew a holiday was coming up, especially like the holidays and stuff, because Edward Jones and Maritz were still open when
Can we just mute all the attendees?
So I would like schedule like
I don't know who that is.
Sorry.
Oh, there we
Are we still on, Emily and Mary Claire?
I'm on.
Sure
Can you
are.
hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Okay,
Back to the non-holiday discussions. All right. And then you both have IT departments that are very robust. Do either of you outsource a lot of your IT needs?
We do not.
Our IT proper, no. We've got a massive IT department, not large IT department, but we partner obviously feet on the ground in every destination with different REV companies and all of that. So we work with IT companies locally or providers to help us. But as far as our registration and all of that, that's in house. But we partner around the world with different, technology companies to bring the events to the people. I think that's just a little bit different. We're talking about registration, which would be in-house for us.
Okay. Emily?
Yeah, same for us. We don't have all of our event registration is in North America, and all of our IT department actually sits in our Denver office. But whenever we're on site, to Mary Claire's point, we're working with the companies that are at the hotels.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the apps for us, just comment. I know, Emily, you had a number of apps, and I did contact our main IT guru here, and I expected a huge number regarding number of apps we were building. And last year we built 150, which I thought was a small number, but he anticipates that will greatly increase this year. And I think it's just like wildfire. It used to be an app for our clients, and maybe for our company. We're in the Midwest, we're worldwide, but it used to be kind of an exciting, let's do an app. Nowadays, it's a couple of years ago, it was still kind of a novelty to me, I thought, but now it's almost a mainstay of a program. So I think we're really going to we do already see increases. And one thing I noticed too, just recently, is partnering with the hotel. They have their own app, so we can link into their app and partner with them at the hotel, and they've already got the map of the hotel and all of the restaurants and all of that. So I find like that's a cool technology that we can partner with our hotel partners. So just wanted to mention that.
That is true, though. How constant feature, I guess, of most of the events, because I remember when we used to have these massive conference guides, but I haven't seen a conference guide in I don't know how many years now, and it's all in the app and on site.
All
and
in the
online.
app. Mm-hmm.
Right. That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. I haven't seen one of those 5-pound documents in ages. Do either one of you have any concerns about continued consolidation? And this is with all apps. I'm not talking about just registration. Do any of you have any concerns about continued consolidation going on in our industry?
Go ahead, Mary Claire.
I think there's always concern. I mean, when we talk about, are you talking about consolidation in general with the hotel companies and airlines, or are we not there yet? More technology-based, Jim?
Right now.
Pardon me?
Right. Technology-based right now.
Yeah, technology-based. I mean, I feel like there's always competition. I was talking earlier with a colleague, and, we work with Eventry. We work with, there's some other non-Cvent, maybe sourcing tools that we use that are still out there that haven't been bought up. But, I feel like there's always going to be some competition out there, and it's really how we manage. I mean, we've got this BMF, we can talk about technology. We can talk about hotels, airlines, all of that. Consolidation is all around us, and I think it's really how we as companies manage that for our clients. So it's concerning, but it's all about how you manage against it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I would say with technology, just because there's so much out there, that it's kind of nice maybe when a few of them consolidate, because it's combining maybe two companies that were sort of heading down the similar direction, and they figure out they can work together better than individually. And then you as the customer get the best technology from that one company, and it requires maybe a little less research or a little less training and that sort of thing, just because there's so many variations out there. And with registration platforms, we have worked in other platforms. We've worked in eTouches, and Splash is another one. Swoogo is one that we've been requested a couple times, but sometimes it works out that it's a good use case and sometimes it doesn't. But each of those, every time a client will come to us, then we have to do our part and, of course, become the expert in that platform itself. So I don't mind the consolidation as much in the technology sphere. What concerns me is the fact that Cvent seems to be the one that's doing the most of the consolidating. So it would be nice to see some of that spread out, I think, because they're just getting really large.
Anything to add, Mary Claire?
No, I agree. I think, we see that too with Cvent, and that's the biggest one for us. But again, just managing against it and understanding the system. I think that's the biggest challenge for us, is understanding this technology. And in the old days, it was just your IT department that had to understand the technologies. And nowadays, our clients are so savvy, we all have to have a working understanding of what's going on in the technological world, and how it affects our clients, pre-sale, post-sale. It's, our buyers on our pre-sale side, they have to understand that when they're doing their hotel contracts and working with the clients and doing stand-up presentations. So it's not always, in the old days, I feel like it was just, it was pigeonholed in our IT. We could just rely on our IT department to answer those questions. And now I think we all have to be versed in what's going on in this industry. So that's a big difference for us too.
I knew you two would be perfect for this webinar, because you've absolutely led right into our last question on IT, and that is, have you seen clients' perception that they have to use a particular app? So they're starting to come to you, because in the old days they didn't even know what app was, and now maybe they've had some great experience with something else, and they come to you and say, we have to use this app. I know you both referenced it a little bit, but have you seen that in particular kinds of apps or in specific cases, and has that benefited you or hurt you? If you could just expand a little bit on that, I'd appreciate it.
I'd say we see that not just apps, but technology in general. And one thing specifically is that people have definitely come to us and said, I want to do RFID session scanning. And so the RFID session scanning is when someone walks, through a session room and they don't have to lift up their name badge and be scanned by an individual or by a piece of equipment. And usually when I hear a client say, oh, I really want to do this, the first question we have to ask is why? What are you going to do with that information? And the reason we ask that is because setting your event up with that sort of technology costs tens of thousands of dollars. It's extremely expensive, depending upon, of course, the size of the event. And it's just interesting how to what you were saying, Jim, they hear, oh, there's this really cool technology that you can scan all of your attendees in, and they can just walk through the door. But when you get down to the actual tracking of it and how it's going to be set up and everything like that, then most of the clients are like, oh, yeah, no, I don't have that in my budget. I just thought it was a cool idea. And so we've seen that just generally with pieces of technology. And then sometimes, too, with Reg platforms, we've been requested to build sites in certain platforms. And then we do the research into it and make sure, okay, well, if we use this type of platform, we're not going to be able to use discount codes and stack them with a variety of types of attendees, or it's not going to have the reporting that you're used to or something like that. So usually once we do our research, I think if we do a good enough job, we can direct the client into the best application or best technology for them, and it ends up working out. And I don't think it's a hinder to us because it just makes us more aware of what's out there. It's another push for us to get our ducks in a row and figure out what other platforms or apps or whatever are available, are out there, and people are searching for.
Great.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. A lot of it comes right back to the budget, and I think they've got these pipe dreams, or they read something on an airplane and say, "Wow, it looks great," a lot of it comes from their children too. They'll say, "Oh, my child is studying this in this technology, and wow, wouldn't this be great if we could apply this to our program or our event or convention?" And again, it goes back to service, I think, and expertise, and that's why we have such a robust IT department. We've got a guy named Neil who walks into presentations weekly and really can speak to, yes, I understand you want ABC app, or you want this technology. What do you want it to do for you? And then here's a solution that's more affordable. Or maybe they do need that. And then the other thing we always have to remember and remind them of is the GDPR, right? And data protection, and how is that influenced, and what are we capturing, what are we storing? So there's that whole aspect of it that we feel very strongly. Obviously, we must be compliant with all that, and we are expected to do that for our clients. So that's a big part of apps and technology, and just be cognizant of data protection and data control and data collection. So.
Thank you. And I'd like to tell all of our attendees, if you come to one of these webinars and you get one great idea, I hope you consider that worth your time. And I just heard a great idea from both presenters today, and that's asking why to a client and going right into budget with a client. So often we say yes, and our head's so busy shaking, and we're so happy we got another piece of business, we don't realize how it can come to harm us, and that's a great way to avoid that. And I particularly like the way you both said it puts you in a better position to serve the client. So thanks for that tidbit. I have my piece of gold from this webinar, but we're going to continue. We're going to go to the second part of the webinar now, which has to do with we're going to cover the benefits and concerns of the monopolization, mergers, buyouts of travel industries such as hoteliers, airlines, DMCs, consolidations, and we're going to spend the next part of the seminar on that, and we will break to make sure we get questions. And don't forget, you can write in your questions, if you want them to be asked, we'll work them into our seminar as we go. So, when it comes to the monopolization of industries such as hotel and airline mergers, what do you consider the advantages and what are the disadvantages? Mary Claire, could you address this first?
Sure, and I think first a thought when this was all, and I'll use the Marriott Starwood example, which I think is the biggest one in recent history for all of us. But that being said, there's a lot. I mean, every time I turn around, somebody's buying up somebody or taking on, Hyatt and Two Roads and all these different. It's hard for us to not only keep up with the mergers, but the brand acquisitions and et cetera, et cetera. So we're really again trying to stay on top of that for our clients. And I think immediately in our industry we think negative, but I kind of look at it as a positive, and I think we've all kind of morphed into that. We've got some really good strategic national salespeople that have done a fantastic job. I'll use the Marriott Starwood as an example. That was a big change for us, I know, here at Maritz. Oh my gosh, our NSO from Starwood's going away, and what's going to happen? And Marriott works so differently. Well, they do work differently, and we've had to change our way of thinking. But we also have relied on the big Marriott to make some changes as well. They work with more regional offices. You might not work with a salesperson who's right in the hotel. Well, that's different than maybe a Starwood for us. But they've really done a good job of trying to address our needs, and I feel like the consolidation has brought a lot of consistency to what we can offer our clients. So we had consistency with both companies for sure, but we've all worked together to streamline that, and it's the devil we know, right? And I hate to say it like that, but I feel like I don't mean that as a negative. I mean it's something that we understand they're huge. We understand both companies and how they were so different, and how are we going to make that work as one, right? And for us, I think it's taken a little time because I'm not a big fan of change, but being an older person in this industry, but I also feel like there's a lot of positive that's come from it, and our people at Marriott have done a really good job of working with us and streamlining that. Our contract templates, all of that, we've been able to use some of our advantages that we might have had with the Starwood company and morph those into maybe contracts that we use over at Marriott, things like that. So there are a lot of advantages, I think. So, Emily?
Yeah, I'll back onto that. I think it's an advantage just because it allows us to have a little bit more power in our contracts. Even for smaller companies, if you have one larger company, then you hopefully have more business with the larger company and can leverage some of that whenever you are contracting or doing any sort of negotiations. So I think, it definitely can be seen as an advantage.
Hey, Mary Claire, would you tell the story about the Hawaii potential disaster you shared with me yesterday?
Oh, sure, sure.
That's the one thing to me really speaks of an advantage, because I'm a little bit negative on the consolidation, but yours is a great story.
Well, we do a lot of business in Hawaii, as I'm sure everybody on the phone does. That's a big incentive destination, and we had a few groups over there last week, and there was a big brush fire on the road from, say, Kaanapali, if you're familiar, on one side of Maui, to the other side, Wailea, and on both sides of those areas of Maui, there are a lot of resorts, but there's one way in and one way out for the most part, and we had a group that was on the Kaanapali side and having a nice activity during the afternoon, and the brush fire hit on the road. So it blocked the road back into Wailea where their hotel was. So they're about 40 minutes away, I would say, from one another. And we had these people out on an activity, and what do? We know they're not going to be able to go back to their hotel rooms, but we know that we have to do something. So we have an operations control center here. We're lucky enough to be big enough. We have a lot of people in place for disaster management, and phone calls were made in the middle of the night, and people were calling back to the hotels. Well, there are no hotel rooms. The hotels are sold out on the Kaanapali side, all over Maui, really. So we were able to contact one of our people who was on Maui, actually not even with this program, but she was doing a site inspection, and said, we need need your help. She thought quickly. She walked into, I will say the name of the hotel. She walked into the Westin and said, I need your help. I know you don't have any hotel rooms, but is your ballroom free tonight? They said, yes, it is. And, because of our relationship with Marriott, with our old Starwood friends, we do a lot of business with them. We relied on that and our partnership and our goodwill. She said, can I have all your rollaway beds? They got all the rollaway beds into the ballroom, set up a shelter, a very nice shelter, by the way, with some heavenly beds. And so those people had a place to sleep that night. So it wasn't ideal. It wasn't individual hotel rooms, but, the alternative was there was no place for these people to stay. And it was the quick thinking of one of our people, not even on that program, and so I give a lot of credit to her. It's the partnership. It's the family feel. I feel like our industry is a family, so I love that part of it. But also going to a hotel and saying, hi, can we have your ballroom? And they said, yeah, you can. So that's the kind of service that I think if this client would have been on their own, they probably wouldn't have, A, thought of that, or B, had the resources to go and make that happen. So I feel like, all the technology in the world and all the consolidation and all the things that have been happening that we could say are negative, at the end of the day, we're a service industry, and we've got really great relationships. We all do on the phone. So that, to me, is just a great win story for our industry. We were able to accommodate them. So.
Yeah, I applaud that young lady who helped make that happen. That was brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a great story.
Emily, what do you think about contracts, how they've changed since the mergers of hotels, DMCs? How do you think they've changed?
I think the way that contracts have just gotten more robust, generally speaking, with all of the security issues and privacy issues. But contracts, I would say the sort of change with the mergers is that we can maybe set up some features or some clauses that are usable for our individual companies. So one of my prior life experiences, we would use our own contract for all of our hotels and all of our vendors that we worked with. And so that was a nice benefit for us, and it would be something that's still useful in the fact that all of these mergers are taking place across different hotels. So I think the contracting is still something that is a challenge, but is also something that can be easily kind of handled with this current situation. So.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Clare, anything to add to that?
No, I agree. I think you said it really well, Emily. I think it's how we manage against it. Again, I know I said that before, but there's a lot of consolidation, and we have to look to the positives of that and try to extract those to best serve our clients.
So, what did the two of you think about the reduction in commissions since most of these mergers have taken place? Can I get your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can take it if that's okay. Again, it seemed like a domino effect. We had the one, and then we heard another, and then you hear another, and you think, oh my gosh, what's happening? And we had a lot of compassion for our friends. We own Experience, so we've got people who are doing more of a commission only based, business. So we do that as well here. So we feel it. So I know the Helms Briscoe and people who are relying on those commissions, that really did hurt their bottom line, their income, their personal income. We as a company obviously sell more than just hotel rooms. So we've never relied fully on that. We give a lot of our commissions back to our clients. So, but that doesn't make a difference. It affects our clients, right? So that's affecting their ability to run those programs because they rely on that 3% means a lot when it went from 10 to 7. But what I've always said, and I think something that we all need to remember, and, yes, a lot of them have gone from 10 to 7, but everything's negotiable. And it doesn't mean that you're going to walk in and say I demand 10%, but sometimes you can work with that, right? And if you can't get the 10% from the hotel, if they're not able to do that, what else can you work with them on to make this the bottom line work for you and for your client, right? We all need to make a profit, whether or not we're giving those commissions back to our clients to help them offset some things, or we're keeping that for our profit, whatever it is. I mean, whatever you're in, whatever place you're in regarding that commission, just remember everything's negotiable. And if you can't do it from the commission, get creative and work with them on what else you can do to make this a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. We were definitely pretty bummed when that started falling through. But similarly to you, Mary Claire, we also do not use the commissions as part of the budget, so that was going back to the clients. So they were also disappointed when those started declining. And then I was reading something the other day that I thought was really interesting. To your point, Mary Claire, was that everything is negotiable, and I completely agree with that. But even so, service fees, which is something I think people don't always consider. I think I read that 47% of global hoteliers will negotiate on service fees. So everything is negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Sarkeesian's a good friend of mine, and she was talking to this point at a recent meeting I was at, and she wondered why we as an industry haven't become even more transparent by this and doing the strategy you talked about, going to the client and saying, hey, you can stay here, that's going to be a 3% premium because I've got to have my fees, or you can stay there and we'll use those extra commissions to reduce your overall cost. Are your sales forces able to be that transparent?
I mean, our sales forces, I feel like extremely transparent. And again, being in this industry for 30 years, and Jim, you and I can probably relate. We used to do. I mean, I remember costing out a program on a napkin, and it was a package price, right? You didn't break out any costs. There was no need to. The clients weren't as savvy. They weren't as we didn't have the internet, for instance. We didn't have the tools, the technology to allow them to be as educated in our industry as they are now. So no, we're very transparent with our clients, and we're not a nonprofit. I mean, we're here to make a living, of course, and keep the doors open, and our clients understand that. So I feel like those educated conversations with our clients and our transparency has allowed us to create loyalty within our client base. And that's a positive again. I mean, we're not going to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. We're here to be fair. We're here to be ethical, and we're here to provide a good service for a client and make a profit. So.
Great.
I agree with that as well. Like our company, one of our cornerstones basically is being authentic and being honest with our customers, with our clients. So we definitely would provide that information and hopefully steer them in the direction that we think will best suit their needs for their programs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. And folks, please, if you've got any questions, we've got one here, but if you've got any questions, write them in, because after this little segment, we're going to break to get your questions answered. So my last question to our great panelists are, where do you see these changes and developments taking us? Where do you see the future because of, and I'm including IT, I'm talking about the mergers, where do you see the overall picture of the industry going with all these advancements and changes?
I think one of the biggest things that I'm seeing, and this is Emily, is on security and personal data. We all know about the GDPR that was released from the EU, and we're all kind of making that a part of our everyday life. But we're also seeing that across different states within the U.S. here. California, Maine, Nevada, they've passed their own state laws for data protection, and then 15 other states have submitted laws into their systems for that as well. So I think people, with all the technology, with everything we're sharing, with everything that we're downloading and sending, and all of these other pieces, like the security is definitely a huge focus, and personal security at the top there.
Yeah, I agree.
I absolutely
Clare,
agree. No, I agree. And, just at our recent site Smart Forum, we had a great speaker about security and safety, and I think every single one of us walked away with some life lessons. And, you feel like, oh, no, I know what's going on. And then, you hear from a man named Kevin Coffey and realize, wow, I haven't thought about that on my program operations. So I feel like that's an evolving necessity in all programs, and will continue to with, like you said, with GDPR and data protection and just what's going on in our world. But the other thing I want to say is kind of going backwards. The technology is evolving so quickly. It's ever advancing. We don't start a program when they land in Hawaii. We start a program many, many months beforehand, right? So we're engaging those winners well before they ever reach Hawaii, and we're engaging them well after they leave the state of Hawaii. So as an example. So I feel like, our phases of experience design and all of that plays so much into it. Technology really helps. But I go back to like 08, 09 and, that big recession when our industry was in such a bad place. And so many companies canceled programs, went to virtual meetings, right? And I don't know if y'all remember, some of those steakhouses would, Fleming's or whatever, they would nationally, you could set up a virtual meeting and save your clients thousands of dollars because they could meet, just by looking at the screen. And those worked for, in certain circumstances. But I think what we found was we were missing the human touch. So as much as our technology continues to evolve, what will never change in our industry is the service aspect. And, they found quickly that, these virtual meetings were not getting the same return on investment for these companies as the in-person meetings. So slowly, actually, the recession, they started needing us more and more because like, wow, now we really need to get our companies back on track. And that's what brought our companies back, right? So we had to be patient, but I feel like the service and the personal attention to detail for our clients will never change. As much as the technology changes, it's our job to continue to have that touch point. So I think a lot's going to change, and that's something we always need to remember, that the personal touches really do make the difference in our service industry.
Well said, well said. Emily,
I did notice, too.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I would say I did read something, too, that we're seeing a 2% increase in the attendee count this year, as well as the length of meetings. So to your point, Mary Claire, they need us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Emily, one of our people asked, when you negotiate like service fees, are you talking about like negotiating different service fees on F&B, or where are you using that term from?
Yes, that's how I'm taking it as well. So it was Amex puts together a global meetings events forecast every year, and I believe that's where I found that information. They had a list of kind of the percentages globally of different things that were negotiable with hotels, and that was one of them. I should double check my source on that because I was looking at quite a few different things. So Jim, I can give that to you to share.
Yeah, we'll put that on our response.
Yeah, but that's exactly how I would take it, and that's something that I've never considered negotiable until I was looking at that document, and and maybe it's not. It was for global, so maybe it's not typically something that you see in North America. Maybe it's something a little bit more common in different countries, but if it's 47%, that's a pretty significant number.
And you look at all the resort fees and the little add-ons that Some resorts actually charge for beach chairs, believe it or not. You know, those things are all negotiable. Those are those fees that kind of add on that we find can be negotiable, right? Internet fees, all of that.
And are you negotiating that before you sign the final contract, or are you adding an addendum that these will be addressed after the final contract, but they're going to be addressed?
Emily, do you want to take that?
I would say when you're working, I didn't hear the full question, but when you're talking up front, I would say you need to come with a list of everything that's really important to you. So if it's the room rate or something that's most significant to you, or what's the dollar amount sort of that you're working with? I don't know if I would share that, but you need to know that when you're going into negotiation, and then how to get that and what your priorities are for getting that. Maybe your F&B budget is small, but your AV budget is large, or vice versa. So you need to kind of have those sort of groups already established, I think, when you go into those contract negotiations.
Yeah, because I think the plus sometimes really adds up on that $250 room rate, right? And you know, to anticipate those, you look at that in the tax, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a service fee, and there's a resort fee, and there's a this fee. So just being cognizant of that, you know, all those extra charges that can add up with the hotel. That, you know, you ask those questions up front.
You know,
and hopefully your NSO is helpful too, because I think sometimes too, if you get in to a contract maybe or with a hotel that you're not familiar with, you just might not be aware of some of those additional sort of fees that are tacked on. So hopefully your NSO can be helpful in understanding the full scope of everything that you're looking at.
The way you answered that both made me think of an example where there is a disadvantage to some of the hotel consolidation. In the old days, you used to be able to tap to your salesperson at the hotel and say, what are you getting paid for, butts and beds or overall revenue? You know?
Yeah.
And when you had to answer that, you knew how to negotiate everything. You know, if it was butts and beds, great. I need food for almost free. And if it was overall revenue, great. I need the discount on, you know, wherever you needed it. And that's been taken away from us a little bit by the consolidation, because typically the contracts are going back and originating at least through the regional offices or the headquarters. We've got several questions we won't be able to answer. I will get them to you, and I'll try to get responses back to the people who wrote them. But one question that's come up is about the destination management companies, and this will be the last question we have time for. And we have a lot of destination management companies that used to be one or two people, and now they've gone to nationwide, and then one day all of a sudden they've gone globally. Mary Clare, as a person that's in charge of that sourcing, how hard's that made your life in the relationship aspect that you're using them three places and three places you wouldn't touch them, but they need to sell those other three places you wouldn't touch? Has that come up often, or you just try to keep people destination specific?
It is been a challenge for us, or an opportunity, maybe I should say, because we do have all this consolidation. We had a company in here today, actually, 4 different destinations. We use all of them that were here, but they have obviously other offices that we don't partner with, because before all this consolidation, you know, our big focus too is we don't want to spread too thin in destination. We want to have some strategic partnerships. Doesn't mean that they're doing a bad job, but we don't need 3, say, DMCs in one city, per se. So I feel like, and then all of a sudden they're part of the big conglomerate, and we're not using some of those offices, like you said. You know, I think we've been able to work through that, and I think our partners do understand where we sit. I also feel like as big as they get, DMCs are a little bit different, and they do all have their own personalities, and I think it's been a real plus, the consolidation, as far as the, again, the contracting, the consistency, I can call a main office and really get some help in a destination that I might not use a lot. And I think I'm seeing, like in the presentation today, much more consistency in their offerings. And I think it's making them a little more, instead of less competitive and, sitting on their laurels, I think it's making them more in tune to trying to work with us. They really want to work with us. They want to be that special person in Atlanta or that special person in Dallas, right? They don't want to be part of the big picture or that big mammoth group. So they really work hard to be individual for us. And then those offices that aren't approved for us, maybe in some cities, they're forever trying to change that game. And so they do stay even more competitive, I feel like. And I think we get really good service out of them. And I think our partnerships are in some ways stronger. So.
Well, thank you. Emily, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Mary Claire. I think DMCs are their bread and butter is basically knowing that city or knowing the location that they're in. So if they aren't able to accommodate that, I think it's very recognizable. So even if they're merging with and becoming a larger company itself, they have to know their territory or they're becoming useless, basically. And especially, I think, with third parties like Maritz, like Unbridled, we can do basically everything that they can do. We just need them to help us with understand the specifics of the locale that they're in, if that be the case. So,
thank you so much. I've got time to squeeze a consolidation of several questions, so obviously we had hit a hot spot with some of our listeners. Specifically, I've been asked, other than CVent, what registration products do you all know of that are still good and still independent of that structure?
Emily, I think you'd be better to answer this one.
Okay.
It's more your wheelhouse.
I think eTouches has a really good platform, and it's not as robust as CVent, but it has a lot of features. It also has their own app. We actually looked at switching to eTouches a few years ago when we were redoing our CVent contract, but we ended up sticking with CVent. But it is going to be probably still more on the expensive side. I think there's not, other than that, there's not one sort of platform that's going to fit all needs. All these different platforms, there are ones that are better for large ticket events, or maybe ones that are better for user conferences or internal conferences where there's no payment or there's no discount codes or anything like that. So the challenge is knowing everything that you need and sort of doing a bit of research on what is available out there or what is going to fit your event. It can't, if you don't want to go the big route, then you need to find one that fits your needs, and there's not going to be one specific that does it all unless you go big. So.
Well, thank you both so much for participating. This has really been a fun hour for me. I hope it's been fun for everybody who's listened in. Keep in mind, go to the Site Midwest page, and you'll see the dates of our Fall Road Show. We're going to have some great things happening on our Fall Road Show, and it's a great chance to get connected and network with not only site members from your local area, but site members from a 5-state area. And so check those dates out. We'll also have our future webinar on there. If you have any ideas for webinars you'd like us to address specifically, please send us a note, and we'll get them worked in. And once again, Emily, thank you. Mary Claire, thank you. And all of the participants, thanks for giving up part of your day. We know your time's the most valuable thing you have. We will sign off now, and this will eventually be on a webinar blog we're putting together. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.